Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled Louisville joined the SEC in 1992 and broke 90s college football. In 1997, college football split its national championship between Michigan and Nebraska. The system was fragile, the BCS was about to launch, and power was consolidating behind the scenes. But in this alternate history, that chaos doesn't just expose the system, it traces back 5 years earlier to one vote when the SEC didn't take South Carolina but took Louisville instead. And once that decision is made, Northern expansion becomes real, Notre Dame adjusts its strategy, Florida State reconsiders its footing, and the 97 season tilts just enough to change how the BCS is born. This is alternate history grounded in incentives, not fantasy. Let's rewind. In real life, the SEC expands by adding Arkansas and South Carolina. But in this alternate history, South Carolina's spot goes to Louisville instead. You may be thinking to yourself that Louisville over South Carolina makes no sense, but expansion decisions aren't sentimental, they're economic. Louisville offers immediate Kentucky rivalry leverage, Metro Louisville households, independent flexibility, and a national basketball brand. South Carolina was regional, Louisville was expandable. The SEC votes. It's controversial, but it passes. And that sets the table for the proof that Northern expansion works. 1993 to 95 Louisville's not dominant. They don't need to be. What matters is validation. Kentucky Louisville becomes SEC inventory. Ratings rise. Recruiting geography changes. The SEC realizes Northern expansion doesn't dilute identity. It increases leverage. You may be thinking to yourself that Louisville couldn't materially affect SEC power, but proof of concept matters more than championships. Once the SEC proves it can expand beyond traditional borders, ambition grows. And in this alternate history, that sets the table for Notre Dame adjusting. Instead of flirting with the Big Ten, Notre Dame signs a limited scheduling agreement with the SEC, 3 games per year, preserved independence, full flexibility. You may be thinking to yourself that Notre Dame would never align with the SEC, but this isn't membership, it's leverage. Notre Dame wants strength of schedule security entering the BCS era. The SEC wants national reach. It's transactional. And suddenly, the SEC is not just Southern, it's national. And in this alternate history, Florida State feels the pressure by 1997. The landscape is changing. SEC is growing in revenue. Louisville validated Northern expansion. Notre Dame is scheduling SEC opponents. And the BCS is about to launch. Now Florida State quietly reopens exploratory conversations with SEC leadership, not to leave, but to gain leverage. And you may be thinking to yourself that Florida State was dominating the ACC. Why destabilize that? Because revenue gaps were emerging, and perception matters before a new championship system forms. When those exploratory talks leak, the ACC stability feels fragile. Miami accelerates exit discussions. The Big East senses pressure. The ACC begins defensive planning years earlier than 2003. And this alternate history, this takes us to the 1997 ripple, the split title year. 97 was already chaotic. Michigan, Nebraska, and debate everywhere. In this alternate history, Louisville's in the SEC West. They don't win the division. They don't need to. They upset LSU in October and later knock off Auburn in a tight November game. Those two results alter SEC West standings just enough. Instead of one matchup in Atlanta, you get another. The SEC championship pairing changes. The margins change, as do the bowl tie-ins. You may be thinking to yourself that 2 regular season upsets wouldn't change the national picture, but in 1997, perception and positioning were everything. The SEC's bowl alignment affects strength of schedule debates. That influences national title polling. And when the championship splits, the SEC's positioning in the argument changes, not wildly, but enough to intensify calls for reform. Now the BCS doesn't feel necessary, it feels urgent. And it's formed in a climate where the SEC has expanded north, aligned with Notre Dame, destabilized ACC confidence, and inserted Louisville into meaningful late season games. And now we set the table for the long-term effect in this alternate history. Louisville doesn't become a dynasty. They don't win the SEC in the 90s. They become something more important. Proof that the SEC can expand beyond traditional borders without losing power. That emboldens future ambition. The Big Ten reacts defensively. Ohio State leadership begins evaluating expansion earlier. The ACC accelerates strategic planning. The Big East weakens sooner. The 2003 realignment cycle doesn't begin in 2003. It begins in the late 90s, all because one vote in 1992 went differently. Now, this is alternate history, but it's alternate history built on leverage, TV value, recruiting geography, and institutional ambition. Louisville doesn't break the 90s because they dominate. They break it because they validate expansion. And once expansion works, no one stands still. If you enjoy this breakdown, hit like so this reaches more college football fans. Comment below. Was Louisville a smarter 1992 expansion bet than South Carolina? And if you want more power adjustment scenarios like this, subscribe. We're just getting started.